Here's Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall justifying her current assault on disabled people.
Unless we reform the system to help those who can work to do so, unless we get social security spending on a more sustainable footing, and unless we ensure public money is focused on those with the greatest need and is spent in ways that have the best chance of improving people's lives, the risk is the welfare state won't be there for people who really need it in future. That is why we are grasping the nettle of reform, not for the sake of it, but to ensure the welfare state lasts for generations to come.
And here she is, ignoring a disabled person who wanted to talk to her about her plans. She doesn't want to hear from the ones who are affected.
I'm Hannah. I'm in receipt of PIP benefits and I'm set to lose them in these cuts. I just want to let you know why are you cutting the support of vulnerable people in a disabled community rather than choosing to tax the super rich and the corporations.
It keeps happening. Again and again, politicians of every stripe, red, blue, it doesn't matter, find a way to target the same group, sick and disabled people. They're the people least likely to fight back, the least able to rally, to strike, to march, and so they become the easiest to ignore until it's too late. The last time this happened, tens of thousands died. That's not a metaphor. That's not a theory. That's fact. And now it's happening again. This video is for everyone who wants to stop it and for everyone who ever asked, what can I do? I'm Mike Sivier of Vox Political. Please watch to the end and buy me a coffee. The link should be on the screen and you'll help me to carry on researching and writing important pieces of video like this. So back in April, I wrote an open letter to Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and Liz Kendall, warning them about their planned cuts to disability benefits. It went not only to the Prime Minister, the Chancellor and the Work and Pensions Secretary, but it also went to the media. I told them these cuts would kill, and I meant it. Because we've been here before. Between 2010 and 2019, the Conservative-led governments of David Cameron and Theresa May launched what they called welfare reform. They replaced DLA with PIP. They slashed ESA. They introduced sanctions and universal credit, and they relied on the work capability assessment, a test so broken coroners linked it to suicide. More than 100,000 sick and disabled people died within 6 months of being found fit for work by the DWP. That's not from me. That's from internal DWP data, suppressed for years and then finally leaked. Hundreds died by suicide. Medical charities warned about it. The British Medical Journal published studies proving it. And still, politicians dismissed the evidence. Then the United Nations got involved and found the UK guilty of grave and systematic violations of disabled people's rights. And now, Labour wants to do it again. The excuse is the same one they always use: fraud. Ministers claim the PIP system is being abused, that too many people are claiming, that 2.8 million people are out of work and on long-term sickness benefits. But here's the truth, and it's a truth they know. PIP had a fraud rate of 0.0% when it was introduced. Today it's 0.4%, that's barely 0.5%, of all the money lost to fraud and error across the benefit system, £9.7 billion, just 2.35% came from disability benefits. In 2005, 2.7 million people were on long-term sickness benefits. Today it's 2.8 million. 20 years later, after a global pandemic, an NHS backlog, an aging workforce and rising rates of chronic illness. Basically no change. And still they want to strip benefits away. Not because they're fixing a problem, but because they're balancing the books on the backs of the poor. When I sent my letter, it got ignored by the government. But just a few weeks later, something incredible has happened. More than 40 leading social scientists, professors, psychiatrists, public health researchers have signed their own open letter condemning the very same PIP and universal credit changes I had warned about. They called the proposals ineffectual, harmful, and morally indefensible. Their verdict is crystal clear. The planned cuts to PIP and universal credit will cause disproportionate harm to disabled people and accomplish little or nothing in terms of helping the economy or balancing public finances. And these aren't just random campaigners shouting into the void. These are professors, doctors, researchers, and consultants from institutions like Oxford, Liverpool, Newcastle, and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Wow. Many are names well known in public health, disability studies, and social policy. Some, like Professor Danny Dorling and Professor Claire Bambra, have helped shape how we understand inequality in this country. So these aren't campaigners. These are senior academics from Oxford, Liverpool, Newcastle, Manchester, people who have studied the impacts of austerity on health and mortality in forensic detail. And they're all saying the same thing. Don't do this again. Where my letter was born from urgency and included only the references it needed to make its point, theirs brings a 30-page bibliography, a devastating indictment of austerity-era welfare policy. It pulls from years of peer-reviewed academic work on the impacts of benefit cuts, assessments, conditionality, and the toxic narratives used to justify them. Among the studies cited are findings that previous reforms increased mental illness and suicide risk. Claimants were not helped into work, but instead fell into destitution. And perhaps their most important finding was this: the savings, as they call it, from benefit cuts would be cancelled out by increased demand on the NHS and local services. In other words, the entire plan is just an exercise in cruelty to the most vulnerable people in the country, for the sake of it. This isn't speculation, it's evidence, it's data, and it's been ignored for too long. The writers demand that Labour immediately reverse all announced cuts to PIP and universal credit. Recognise the failure of past welfare reforms. Consider alternative ways to balance the budget, including, yes, taxing the rich. Public finances can and should be improved via redistributive measures such as a wealth tax, they say. As once promised, those with the broadest shoulders should bear the heavier burden. You hear that, Keir? Then came Mo Stewart. Long-time readers of the Vox Political website will know her work. She's been exposing the toxic relationship between the DWP and private health insurance firms like Unum since the early 2010s. She's one of the few people in the country who has documented how UK welfare policy was influenced by an American corporate model designed not to help people, but to reject as many claims as possible. Mo has now written a briefing for Labour MPs, warning that if the new PIP changes go ahead, the result will be, and I quote, a government-induced public health crisis. She points out that the Green Paper explicitly plans to save £5 billion from PIP, regardless of the consequences. No impact assessment has been carried out. The DWP Secretary of State misled Parliament repeatedly, and the whole thing is rooted in neoliberal ideology, a belief system that treats sick and disabled people as a problem to be managed, not people to be helped. Mo writes, more chronically ill and disabled people are destined to suffer, with no one held to account when many of those in greatest need are, covertly, killed by the state. Not might suffer, not maybe, will. These cuts aren't a one-off mistake. They're not an accident. They are what happens when politicians treat public services like balance sheets, not lifelines. When the media lets them scapegoat disabled people as work-shy or benefit scroungers. When think tanks write policy and real people are left to die. It's ideological, it's systematic, and it's brutal. And whether it comes with a blue rosette or a red one, it's the same cruelty. Tony Benn said something that haunts me more and more these days. Every generation must fight the same battles again and again. There is no final victory and no final defeat. We didn't listen when the Tories did it. Now Labour is doing it too. And we must not look away. We need to be vigilant because the fight doesn't end. It just takes a different shape. And vigilance means knowing the arguments, challenging the lies, calling out MPs, supporting people who speak out, and building independent media that can't be silenced or sidelined. This is not just about policy, this is about life and death. So here's what you can do right now. Share this video with people who need to know. Write to your MP, especially if they're Labour. Support campaigns by groups like DPAC, Disabled People Against Cuts, Z2K, and the Disability Poverty Campaign Group. And if you value what I do here on Vox Political, support it via Ko-fi, via shares, via your voice, because they can ignore a few of us, but they can't ignore all of us. Don't let them say we stayed silent. Don't let them say we didn't fight. I've been Mike Sivier. Please like, comment, subscribe. Share this as far as you can. And don't forget the link to buy me a coffee. Every donation helps because then I can research more pieces like this, get more information out, make more people aware. Thanks for your time. And you'll see me, whether you like it or not, in the next one.